If a political movement does not police its ranks, does not draw lines, if a political movement neglects to protect its borders, if it does not defend its sacred values, it cannot long endure. We may wind up spending the next few years watching the same story we just lived through on the other side, as the far right, and not the way cable defines it, which includes almost everyone in this room today, but as the real far right devours what remains of the center right.
That was the founder of the Free Press, Bari Weiss, who decided to go after what she dubbed the far right. And she also stated that it could corrupt the entirety of the conservative movement if left unchecked. So Weiss did take some not so subtle shots at specific individuals, namely Tucker Carlson in particular. So we'll get to him in just a minute. But first, let's hear a little more of Weiss's thoughts on the far right overall.
This group says that we're in a war here at home, and that because we're at war, because the stakes are life and death, the normal rules of the game need to be suspended. They say that those who don't go along with that are squishes or traitors, or they were secret leftists all along. Or they accuse them of being conservative or Republican in name only, which is a version of the false consciousness that Marxists are so fond of telling people that they suffer from. They say it's not enough to return to normal or renew our old values, because that's not an option. Instead, what they say is that it's time to give the other side a taste of their own medicine. They say, we were treated cruelly, and so cruelty is the only response.
I have to correct one small thing. And look, a lot of people make this argument. It's not founded in reality. There's a lot of people running around online who like to call themselves Marxists, and they're not Marxists, they're radical liberals. There are like 5, like I could count them on my hand, Marxists in the country. I know them personally. None of them subscribe to the rad lib, doctrine of hall monitoring and speech policing or any of that stuff. So I just want to make that quick correction. But she's making this argument, Cenk, about how the Democratic Party has really suffered as a result of their failure in getting control of some of the more excessive, I guess the excesses of the radical liberals. But can you make that same parallel with the conservatives?
Yeah, so look, I think that this is complicated. And she's about to take on Tucker Carlson, and I'll probably agree with Tucker on some of it. And there's a code word that she used there. It seems benign, American values, and she'll talk about Western values. It's not benign. If she really meant it, then it would be perfectly great. But I'll tell you what it actually means in a minute. But when she distinguishes between the far right and the center right, I appreciate that. I think that makes sense. Because not everyone on the right is the same. And in fact, I draw another distinction. Then there's the moderates and the independents that voted for Donald Trump who just hate the establishment, and he seemed less establishment. I don't even think they're right wing at all. So that portion, right? So it's a big spectrum, and there are different parts of the spectrum. And so, and of course, I've talked about the far left versus the center left, or populist left, and everybody catches feelings over it. And why? Because both the far right and the far left are incentivized to pretend that all of the voters on their side agree with them. No one actually elected them to those positions. No one actually voted that way. In fact, when we do vote, they almost always get annihilated, both the far right and the far left. But they say, no, we are the kings and queens of what is left and what is right. So the fact that she's pushing back against that on the right, I think is terrific. I think the other thing that she's pushing back against that's terrific is this idea of violating the normal rules and laws of America. No, we should follow the laws of America. And that is, shouldn't be a right wing or left wing position, but certainly that used to be a right wing position, rule of law, right? At least a talking point. So, and she's right when she points out that the far right makes excuses for Donald Trump saying potentially ignore the courts and then that he's above the law. Oh, well, they did it. That's the most common excuse I hear. Well, if they did it and they're so evil, what does that make you when you do it? So that is not a principled way to act, and I appreciate that. Yes, later I'm going to disagree with her.
So look, Weiss is covering a lot of ground there, but she could at least in part be alluding to this post by President Donald Trump, which she quoted. So he had said, "He who serves his country does not violate any law." Bari Weiss disagrees. I disagree with that as well. I mean, it depends on what the dear leader is up to, and if he is violating things like constitutional rights and the rule of law, then yeah, that's a problem. And look, the argument that he's making there is this ridiculous argument of how the means don't have to justify the ends, but I disagree with that entirely. I think the means do have to justify the ends, and the idea of by any act necessary to get what you want, that's unacceptable. You have to follow the law and you have to keep constitutional rights in mind. And so I agree with Bari Weiss on this. Now, she went on to criticize Tucker Carlson in her speech. Let's give that a watch.
Just as the left defaced and desecrated statues of Churchill, the vandals on the right desecrate his name and his memory. While the left, long sympathetic with Stalin, today sympathizes with modern day Nazis in the form of Hamas, the new right eulogizes the original ones. And in rehabilitating Hitler, and I'm not exaggerating, they don't just demonize Jews, but they demonize the West itself.
I'm gonna let you take this one, Cenk.
Yeah, there we go. When they demonize poor victim Israel, they demonize all of the West. So you in Kansas, even though it looks like you giving $300 billion to Israel is a giant waste of your money, no, Israel is the bulk of Western values. The West loves to commit genocide and ethnic cleansing. And if anyone doesn't voluntarily give up their land to Israel, the West's values is to slaughter them endlessly. Wait, you got a little derailed there, Barry. That doesn't have anything to do with what you were talking about before, which I liked. So I knew she was gonna go there when she started using the word values, because American values then morphs into Western values. And the trick of the Israeli supporters is the West is comprised of America and Israel. That's it. Maybe a little bit of Europe, but I don't like their socialist policies. I like their, some how they look. Their socialist policies, no, so just Israel and America, and not really America, just give everything to Israel, okay? So now we've got a conflict because Tucker Carlson is not interested in giving everything to Israel, and so are many other folks. And then there was a recent fight we covered on the show where Mark Levin was upset that there was somebody going to go into the Defense Department that whose sole job wasn't kissing Israel's ass. And then Charlie Kirk stood up for that guy, and so did JD Vance, and so did Elon Musk. So now we've got a rift. We've got a significant difference in foreign policy here. And so on this one, I'm totally against Bari Weiss. And in the other camp, Israel shouldn't be first. I don't even think it should be second. I don't know why we even care about Israel, let alone gave them $300 billion. I could understand why we cared about it maybe in 1948, and that was an interesting and debatable point. But at this point, they're one of the strongest nations on earth, both militarily and economically. And and people here saying, no, we demand all of your money anyway. Well, the left wing hates it, and that's why she said the left likes Hamas, which is Nazis. The left likes Nazis. Before they used to like Stalin, and now they love Hitler. Shut up. That is so hyperbolic and ridiculous. And Barry, do you really believe that all of the left likes Stalin? Because you're making yourself look ridiculous and totally uneducated when you say that. And then now you turn around to, if you don't support giving endless billions of dollars to Israel to slaughter more Palestinians and take Gaza, take the West Bank, take everything, and we have all the land. If you don't support that, you're now a Nazi. No, not interested, not at all interested. And you ruined the first half of your speech, which was actually a good speech until you got to, now remember everybody, the whole point of me telling you all of this is so you give all of your money to Israel. Not at all interested, thank you.
So we do have a poll on this. Bari Weiss versus Tucker Carlson. Jake, do you want to present it?
Yeah, who's gonna win on foreign policy? So I'm not talking about the rule of law. I agree with Bari Weiss on that. And yes, by the way, it turns out you could agree and disagree in parts with a human being, whether they're on the right or the left. If you use this crazy thing we have in our body called your mind, okay, instead of me hate all of them, me hate all of them, but they disagree. So which one do you hate on this disagreement? When it comes to foreign policy, on the issue of Israel, I hate it, but yeah, Tucker's right and Bari Weiss is wrong. So sad day for anyone who doesn't want to use their mind. And now, by the way, the reason why Bari Weiss and Mark Levin and other supporters of Israel in America are starting to give these speeches and even lash out at Trump for his appointments is because they're beginning to panic, because Israel is in the middle of losing the right wing. And once they lose the right wing, they ain't got no wing left. So because then at that point, it becomes super obvious that it's the American people versus AIPAC. And they don't want that to be obvious, even though it's really been that way for decades. Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.